Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to this mini episode of the Authentic Man podcast with me, your host, David Chambers. I feel like I just did something called shaking. There's a video I've been using myself and also instructing my clients to use. And it really brought up this topic of, how we believe we're not enough, and what if you aren't enough, good enough, big enough, smart enough, whatever it is. It just really came to me to talk about this today. But quick plug actually for my own stuff. I did a show on Jazz FM recently in the UK, and I feel really happy because I guess I grew up listening to radio. I'm old like that. But in that show, I talk about men, masculinity and love and the kind of intersection and how in music, talking about love and emotions is very acceptable. But through day-to-day lives, men we still struggle with. So there's a beautiful hour of music and me talking. So if you want to check that out, head over to Jazz FM here in the UK, or you can find it online. It's also in the US as well. You can find me under Jazz FM Voices. So I plug that. And also I've got some events coming up around dating, intimacy, sex, tantra, sexual performance. I'll put the links below. I won't rattle on about that too much. So back to the topic. What if you aren't good enough? Like really, I was asking myself, what happens if we just accept that you're not good enough? What happens? Because we spend so much time and energy resisting this idea that we're not good enough, hiding it, running away from it, trying to convince other people that we're good enough, trying to convince ourselves that we're good enough. We spend all this time in this illusion that also there is some holy grail place of being good enough, right? And hasn't that place probably changed for you over time? Maybe 10 years ago, look at yourself where you are now and you'd say, well, that's good enough. And now that you're here, you still don't feel good enough. And also to ask yourself, what is good enough for you, Whatever aspect of it. Like for me, it might be, am I a good enough podcaster? Like me trying to come on a podcast and pretend that I'm better than I am and I'm bigger than I am and I'm getting more downloads than I am. But I could just accept that maybe I'll never be a good enough podcaster and I can still be successful. I can still be happy and I can still be abundant. It doesn't make me bad and wrong to accept that. Like I can accept that with a smile, especially when you start to think and ask yourself, who is good enough? Who do you know that you look at and go, well, they're good enough? Because the truth is, it's an illusion. Because are they good enough? Do they believe they are? Are you seeing all parts of them? Or are you just seeing the parts that reinforce your own belief about yourself? It's like I said before, we all have flaws. We all have ways in which we're not good enough in some capacity, whether that be as a coach, as a brother, as a sister, as a mother, as a partner, as a builder, as someone who looks after plants. We all have aspects of us that are not good enough. And this perpetual fighting against them, perpetual trying to hide them, this perpetual kind of lack of acceptance only gives and fuels more fire to the not good enough feeling. And I more and more advise, people I work with is like acceptance. Because when we resist something, we won't even look at it really properly. So when we can just accept something and look at it and go, yeah, okay, like I'm not a good enough footballer, for instance, right? Cool. That's okay. Like I can exist. You can exist and not be good enough, I'm sure you could ask presidents around the world. Every day we berate politicians and presidents and prime ministers for not being good enough. And you know what? They carry on doing their job. They don't fall and crumble and fall apart and give up. They carry on. Every year, if you have a job, you have things like performance management, and in some way they tell you you're not good enough. In some way, there's always some small thing that you're not good enough at. But yet you're still doing a good job. You're still doing well. You're still, helping your company. And if you're a self-employed person, a business person, at some part of your business isn't good enough. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you don't strive to be better, right? But you can also accept something and then strive for better, right? Without fueling this idea that you're not good enough and that is wrong in some way. And hiding that feeling of not being good enough. You know, I can sit here and say there are so many ways that I don't feel I'm good enough, whether it's as a coach, as a partner, you know, as a brother, you know, all these things. Even as a son, I feel I'm not good enough. And then the older I'm getting, the more I realize that I can accept that fact and have peace and not put all my energy into hiding or pretending or forcing. You know, I might not be a good enough meditator or a good enough yogi, you know, or good enough tantric, but I don't have to spend all my energy or so much of my energy hiding that from other people or even for myself. Or, you know, the truth what's underneath not being good enough is that maybe I just need to change something small, but I can accept this fact. And I think this is the message of today. It's just like we're living in this world where there's an illusion that happens in our mind, right? And also by the world, that other people are good enough or things are good enough. Like, is anything good enough? You know, at any point would you reach and say, okay, I'm bloody good enough at that, I'm going to stop there. Like, we don't. We live in this world that is very, you know, masculine driven, you know, masculine energy, very immature masculine energy. There's always like, there's never enough. There's never enough. And maybe you realize that this message has seeped into you and you've internalized it about yourself, that it's never enough. You know, so I really recommend that you take this on and have a think about this. You know, and it might sound quite morbid, like, oh my God, I'm not enough. But, you know, just smile and go, you know what? I'm not enough. I can live, I can exist, I can thrive and still not be enough. Isn't that a beautiful way to just accept this feeling, this worry, this fear? You can survive. You can be a great human being who's successful and create amazing things and have great relationships and love deeply and wholeheartedly and still not be enough. Isn't that a great way to walk into your day? Like, it's okay not to be enough, because we're all suffering from the same fucking thing. We're all suffering from not being enough. All of us. There's no one around that's not suffering from this in some way. So you are not unique in your not enoughness. We often feel that we are special. We are different. My not enoughness is special and different in some way, but no, it's not. It's the same fucking thing everyone's dealing with. Everyone you look at, everyone you meet, every person you walk into a shop and see, every celebrity you see on TV, every great master and every great mistress, you know, there was somewhere in them that felt that they weren't good enough at something or other. And with that, I will end this episode and hope that you have a wonderful day and you can smile and accept wherever it is you feel that you're not enough, and proudly tell people, or, you know, tell a friend about this episode. Maybe it will lighten their day and make them realize that their chastising of themselves for not being enough is as pointless as, you know, many other pursuits. But I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how, you know, accepting your not enoughness has helped you, how it made you feel. And yeah, if you're interested in the shaking video, I'll drop it in the show notes, actually. I highly recommend it. It's only 20 minutes. It's by a wonderful woman, Iliana, I think her name is. So yeah, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening or day, wherever you are in the world.